The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
It's my pleasure to welcome you to our Early Exchange today. I am Blessing Aiche. Early Exchange is the show where we talk about business, economy, and development and provide you a perspective as to how you can benefit from emerging developments. Now today we'll focus on global policy update. But first, let me tell you what Steve Jobs says. He says, if you're not passionate enough about it from the start, chances are you might never stick to it. But it's never too late for you to reject that passion of yours towards your business, towards your career. Today we'll be focusing on some emerging developments around the globe. First of all is India's trade deficits. And guess what? There is a surprise. Who would have told us that Nigeria will be missing from the list of countries with worst food inflation? What does that say? Is there hope for Nigeria? Is it that it is not doing as bad as some people think? Just sit down, relax, stay with us the rest of the show, and you'll find out all about that. There's a gentleman with me here today, as always here with me on the Early Exchange. His name is Femi Ayodele. I want you to see the latest version of him. Good morning, Femi.
Good morning. Here's my latest version.
Oh yeah,
Is
and
it
your latest
different from what I
version?
used to do?
Yes, it's different. It tells you had a restful weekend.
Oh, great.
And you had some grooming, yeah,
Oh,
because you look
great.
good.
I think I deserve an applause for that.
So if you were to be in India, would that mean that what a lady would pay to have you as a husband will increase?
Well, in this situation now, it's about business. So
It's business as well.
So what we
So your
have
value
is
has increased.
It's going to be an exchange between the two of us. So exchange your value.
Okay.
All right, talking about exchange your value, what a good time for you to join us, for us to add value to your day and to make your day, worthwhile. It's a good thing. And we're glad to have you join us on Early Exchange this morning, where we'll talk about issues related to business, finance, and the economy. Don't forget, it's your program. You can be part of this conversation. All you just have to do is to join us on our social media platforms and our YouTube page. Now, let's set the ball rolling with news update. And Lovina is standing by in the newsroom to be our guide.
Good morning, Femi and Blessing, and hello. Welcome to the news update on Souk News. I am Lovina Emma. As part of efforts to strengthen connectivity between rural communities and essential facilities like markets, schools, and hospitals, among others, the Nigerian government is set to secure a $500 million loan from the World Bank. The Rural Access and Agricultural Marketing Project Scale Up RAAMPSU is slated for board approval on November 28, 2024 and is set for implementation in the fiscal year 2025. Spearheaded by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, it involves establishing rural access road agencies and state road funds, along with digital outcome monitoring and gender-targeted opportunities. The project will also upgrade Nigeria's rural road network infrastructure and institutional framework. In a bid to reduce the economic challenges facing citizens, Lagos State, Southwest Nigeria has begun selling essential food items at discounted prices across the state. This follows Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu's directive to offer discounts at the Onje Eko markets in all 5 divisions of Lagos, starting from Sunday, March 17. The market, known as Onje Eko, provides staple food items like rice, beans, gari, bread, eggs, tomatoes, and pepper at 25% discounts to citizens across 5 divisions and 50 centers across the state. Souk News correspondents who went around some of the markets noted that residents rushed to purchase items at different locations as early as 8 a.m., with security operatives monitoring the markets closely. One of the vendors at the market commended the initiative, noting that the program does not only provide support for Lagosians to get subsidized foodstuffs, but also empowers small-scale business owners to sell at the markets. Away from Nigeria, Niger's ruling junta, led by spokesperson Colonel Amadou Abdrahmane, has announced the immediate revocation of military accord permitting the presence of U.S. Department of Defense personnel on its soil. This decision follows a recent visit by U.S. officials, including Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs Molly Fee and General Michael Langley of the U.S. Africa Command. Abdrahmane cited breaches in diplomatic protocol during the delegation's visit, revealing that Niger was not adequately informed about their composition, arrival date, or agenda. Discussions centered on Niger's military transition, cooperation with the U.S., and partner choices in combating militants affiliated with Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. While U.S. officials acknowledged candid discussions with Niger's ruling military council, known as the CNSP, Niger condemns the delegation's alleged attempt to dictate partnership choices, noted that the illegality of the U.S. troop presence in Niger, citing unilateral imposition in 2012 without Niger's consent, and subsequently revokes the agreement regarding the status of the U.S. military personnel and civilian employees on the Nigerian territory. And still in Africa, the European Union has announced an $8.1 billion package for the upgrade of key projects in Egypt. This initiative aims to bolster cooperation in areas such as renewable energy, trade, and security, while providing grants, loans, and other funding over the next 3 years to support Egypt's economy. The funding includes $5 billion in concessional loans, $1.8 billion of investments, and $600 million in grants, including funds for managing migration. The move is part of efforts to address migratory flows and boost economic activities in the country. And finally, as Japan approaches the conclusion of 8 years of negative interest rates, a regional lender based in Kyoto is taking proactive measures by offering e-learning sessions to educate staff unfamiliar with operating in positive interest rate environment. Targeting approximately 3,300 banks of Kyoto employees, these sessions cover the significance of interest rates, the determination of lending rates, and the implications of the rising interest rates on the bank's operations and its clientele. Additionally, seasoned executives from the bank share insights on strategies for persuading borrowers to accept higher charges. The e-training, accessible in 30-minute sessions via smartphones, aims to equip younger staff for heightened competition in attracting deposits previously considered liabilities due to surplus funds held by lenders. And with that, we call it a wrap on news updates this morning. I am Lovina Emma. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned to Early Exchange with Femi and Blessing.
All right, thank you, Lovina, for the news update. It's time for us to go on a short break now. When we return, we'll kick off our conversation for today, our major story for today. Stay with us.
The heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress. Welcome to Souk News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souk News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souk News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souk News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souk News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions. Lateef Jakande. Born Lateef Kayode Jakande in the Ekbetedo area of Lagos Island, Lagos State on July 1929. He studied at the Lagos Public School at Enowa, Lagos Island, then at Bonham Memorial Methodist School, Port Harcourt, King's College, enrolled at Ilesha Grammar School, where he edited a literary paper called The Quarterly Mirror. Jakande began a career in journalism in 1949 with the Daily Service and joined the Nigerian Tribune in 1953. The owner, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, appointed Jakande editor-in-chief of the Tribune in 1956. Jakande established John West Publications in 1975 after leaving Tribune and began to publish the Lagos News. He served as the first president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, NPAN. Jakande ran for election as executive governor of Lagos State in 1979 on the Unity Party of Nigeria platform. His administration was effective and open and implemented the cardinal policies of his party. He introduced housing and educational programs targeting the poor, building new neighborhood primary and secondary schools, and providing free primary and secondary education. He gave poor people's children education, and many of them are now very prominent in the society today. Jakande established the Lagos State University and constructed over 30,000 housing units. After the military takeover in 1983, Jakande was charged, prosecuted, and convicted of treason and later pardoned. He served as Minister of Works under the Sani Abacha military regime. He died in Lagos on February 11, 2021. Lateef Jakande was the first civilian governor of Lagos State. Lateef Kayode Jakande, Souk Enlightenment. The heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress. Welcome to Souk News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souk News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souk News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souk News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souk News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions. got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas touch and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job.
My name is Dr. Rafiu Oladipo.
My name is Baba Jalal Repega.
I'm Reverend Juliet Benite.
I'm Godio Didi.
My name is Professor Oladokun Sulaiman Olarawaju.
Sook News is on the ground, loading.
Very enlightening, very educative, and entertaining.
Thank you to Sook News.
So I'm happy that Sook TV has come into existence.
I'm happy to be here in the Sook News.
I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel and keep watching news that makes sense.
As Browning said, one's extension of one's reach should not exceed one's grasp, or what is heaven for. And I think Sook News is doing that.
Africa needs a voice of truth, and Sook News has become one of them. And get ready, get ready, get ready.
And keep watching.
Keep watching Sook News.
Keep watching Sook News. It's a place to be.
Keep watching Sook News.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, it is Early Exchange, where we shape policy and advance development. I'm glad to know you're still there with us. And now let's kick off our global policy update for today by looking at the latest development in India, where, according to statistics released on Friday, the trade deficit has increased to $18.7 billion, as are the figure released in February. What is the implication of this, and what are the factors responsible for this surge in February? Let's see what our in-house analysts will have to say about this and its perspective. We're being joined by Dr. Idauza Osamazi, as usual. Glad to have you join us this morning.
My pleasure to be analyst. Good morning. Good morning, Blessing.
Good morning, sir. Welcome to the show.
Great. So how was your weekend?
Well,
busy as usual.
Yeah, we don't really have weekend. We work more weekend than weekdays, though.
That's interesting.
But in spite of it, you look good.
Thank you.
All right, let's look at India. We're starting our global policy update from India, not Nigeria this time around. Of course, we'll still get to Nigeria, but let's start from India. And then the latest development, according to statistics released on Friday, says the trade deficit has increased to $18.7 billion US. You know, when you have trade deficit, the implication is your import has increased more than your exports. Give us a background to this, and what do you see playing out in India with these latest statistics?
Well, if you look at the data that was published, and then, of course, the prediction by Recha, that, of course, the figures should have been around 18.30. Now you're having 18.71 in terms of trade balance between Israel and other countries in the world. So that suggests that in February, India had to import about 60 billion worth of commodities to its market and exported about 41 billion in exchange. And that's accounted for that gap in terms of the deficit that is recorded. Generally, and that is global too, we must also look at it that India is also relying and depending more on external supply and is buying more than is selling. And that, of course, is a challenge, and that's what nations try to remedy, to see how to kind of reduce the gap between what you are selling and what you are buying, so that you are not overspending. What that means is that you are seeing more foreign exchange leave India to the outside, and then, of course, less is coming in, and that put pressure on the local currency in terms of people having to have access to the international currency for exchange, which is the dollar. So the local currency will be under pressure because you will need more dollar to be able to buy from outside, and what you are getting or selling from the outside is not enough. And that, again, affects pricing, which puts further pressure on the inflation trend within the country.
All right, so India is also exporting, even though, like you just said, they still depend on import. But would you consider it's a bad situation when India exports 41.40 billion and then imports 60.11 billion worth of goods?
Well, I don't see it as bad. From projection, it's not something that is very bad. But again, you also understand that some of all these issues also have their own political undertone. India is going into election in April, and opposition can actually take this figure as a point to argue against the effectiveness of the economic policy of Prime Minister Modi, because one of the things that people have actually advanced about Prime Minister Modi that has been very strong in terms of economic policy in India, that India is becoming very strong, and then you are looking at it from that point of view that he has weakened opposition, and what he has succeeded in doing is building a viral economy. Now, but you're saying that, of course, the deficit is widening, and somebody is saying, oh, maybe it was a fluke now that the chickens are coming to roost. It will mean more that maybe the policies are not as effective as people would say. So there's no way that, of course, opposition will take advantage of this kind of data as we move toward area election in April.
Ideally, when a nation experiences trade deficit, what will be the economic implication of that? You know, that's what you refer to as a negative balance of trade.
Of trade, yeah.
Yeah. So globally, what will be the implication of that economically for that nation? And then what are the things that can be done to correct this kind of trends, especially when it becomes persistent?
Yeah, but again, it's also to look at what these items are that are really being imported. And number one is to look at the possibility of these things being made in India. So you're looking at having to put energy in industrializing your environment or your economy, and the things that are produced locally, you don't need to export them. So it's that analysis that one also will have to look at in terms of trade deficit. It's also to also look at it from the point of view to look at it is it also very strategic that you're building a new industry and then, of course, you don't have capacity, so which means you will need to have to import so much in building that industry. In that case, it becomes very strategic, and it's also something that is going to be a long-term issue. So all this analysis needs to be brought to bear to actually be able to suggest what policy option that one can recommend for India. But unfortunately, the data and the spread are not available for one to actually see, to look at it from that perspective and say, okay, are there goals that India could actually do at home? Why import this? Are there more India can produce? Is there a gap in terms of the exports opportunities for India? Is there a need to expand the production base? so that you will be able to feed the market. You know, it's possible for you to actually be exporting, and the other nations are expecting more from you, but what you can deliver at the moment is not enough to meet the demand out there. Then you also be looking out for opportunity to scale up, which of course can also help the local industry in India.
Let's do some comparison. For the United Arab Emirates, that lives basically on imports, and for a country like India that exports and also imports, what is the difference really? How is the UAE able to sustain on imports and still have its economy grow, while other countries are having both exports and imports? Still is a struggle.
Well, it won't be a nice comparison to use the UAE, because you see, logically positioned in UAE is that UAE is about 3 hours away from 3/4 of the population of the whole world. What that means is that the market in the UAE is proximate to the biggest population around. From UAE to India is about 3 hours. To China is about 4 hours. So to Africa, you see the proximity to huge population in the UAE is an advantage. And so what UAE has done as a hub, though they are not producing, they are also exporting nation. Because you see, the goods come to UAE cheap, and neighboring countries come to UAE to buy, because they have entered into agreement. Though they are not having industry producing this good locally.
So they're like the middlemen.
Yeah, but they're like, yes, a middleman. So you ship it in and they ship it out. So that's why their port is always busy, because it's not just about import to UAE. You'll see that a whole lot of Nigerians are bringing things from the UAE to Nigeria. So that is recorded against export. So for them, and so they are not actually, it's not just as if they receive everything and they consume it alone. It's actually like a wheel. And then, of course, as it comes, they redistribute to other places without really spending whole energy in terms of local or domestic production.
All right, you raised something quite important earlier, talking about what led to the surge in February, and as a result of the fact that India did more of gold import in February than any other month. According to the statistics, India imports gold primarily from Switzerland, that's about $13 billion, from South Africa, $3.3, UAE, the one you talked about, which is about $3.2, from Guinea and Bolivia. So you could see the relationship between India and UAE is quite strategic. But what do you make of the statistics? You know, just in February alone, the surge in gold import. Earlier you talked about the need for this thing to be produced locally. What does that suggest to us about, you know, this disposition of India to the production of gold, which primarily was the main commodity that was imported in February and led to the surge, according to the statistics?
Again, you look at it from the geopolitics that's also playing out. And you know, recently we were also talking about India being a fundamental member of BRIC nations. And what the BRICS are trying to do is to have currencies that is gold-backed. So it's not strange that there's so much importation of gold into the UAE as a new means of storing value. What that means is that they are de-emphasizing dollar. So it's a strategic trade, and if you don't have gold in your place, what do? You have to import it. So you see, the emphasis is to actually get in gold into your environment and see you are using it to preserve value, and it become a new store of value rather than put the money in terms of dollar, which of course is the international currency for trade. Because like we said last week, you see, the BRIC nations are also looking out for opportunity to de-dollarize the economies and look out for their currency that are also gold-backed, that you can actually retain value in gold rather than in dollars. In that case, if you don't really have a need for dollar, you don't need to go put your money in dollars, and which of course what many nations had done, because they are hedging currency against very strong dollar. So for me, this is to some extent strategic, and as you're looking at it from that point of view, that they are buying gold and they are shoring up another means, alternative means to storing of value. So if you put those golds in your house for years to come, the value keep going up, and then it doesn't diminish. So you don't need to actually keep your local currency, because of course Indian currency is also very weak, and because you're looking access to the market. And so if you have to store, people are thinking and say, oh, currency is going to be weakened, MPC is going to reduce rate or increase rate, and people are thinking, what do I need to do with my currency? So I better buy up dollars and store up this value in dollar, and therefore put more pressure on the local market, raising inflations and foreign exchange insecurity. So this is strategic for them from the point of view of the geopolitics of the BRIC nations.
All right, let's look at services export. Now, in terms of services, India did export $32.35 billion in February, while imports were at $15.39 billion. So in terms of services, they had more to export. Is there a way India can shore up what it's not having in terms of merchandise export with services? They're doing quite well there, but is there a way to expand it?
Yeah, but I think that market is already almost overstretched for India, because you look at it, almost all the nations in the world are relying on India for the export of knowledge, because you're in a knowledge-based economy, and you require a lot of people who are sophisticated in terms of IT, and of course the fourth industrial revolution with the Internet of Things and AI and robotics and humanoids everywhere in the world. And of course they are pioneering the power base of the software that drive this process. And then also forget too that of course most of the what you may call customer service, for example, offering actually is happening from India. You will be shocked that you are calling MTN today and they are telling you, oh, service is not available. The person who's actually speaking is not in Nigeria, it's actually in India. And you've seen, of course, in India, people who are operating tax policies sitting down in India, and they are operating tax policies in the US, because almost all of all these things are done online. Now, all of all this earn India a whole lot of foreign exchange. And don't also forget that every Indian who works outside of India actually pays tax back home, as long as he's carrying the passport of India. So these are where you see these services, service offering as exports, bringing a lot of foreign exchange to India. But I think India, to a very large extent, had invested so much in knowledge-based economy, and they continue to do it, because a very little child in India, 10-year, 9-year-old people are already producing great games and things that they can ship elsewhere. So continuous investment will be good, but I think that market is doing really excellently well at that number.
Let me point your attention to something interesting as well about the statistics. India's export rise 11.9% to $41.4 billion in February, highest in 11 months. Isn't it interesting that the same month that you're expecting or experiencing a surge in import, the other side, export, you're also having another surge, 11.9% increase to $41.4 billion, the highest in 11 months, same month.
Yeah. Yeah, I think looking at it from that perspective again, you see they are doing more, they are selling more, they are also accessing international market, but that does not take away the gap. Yes, they're trying and pushing what they can sell outside, but imports still supersede the exports, and that's really the issue. So what that means is that what you have earned and what you have given out, there's a deficit. And what nations struggle for is that trade balance. So you don't have so much of so large deficit, because what you are selling should actually be able to buy what you are buying. Now, if what you sell is not able to pay for what you're selling, there's a shortfall. How do you manage that shortfall is what the real issue in terms of economic policy in India will be. How do we accommodate these excesses that is coming. Yes, they are trying, and I think they need to do more in terms of shoring up that value and reducing importation so that there can be a balance of trade between India and the rest of the world.
All right, but before we wrap up quickly, what's the interest in India's trade? Because this was actually forecasted even before the government released the data on February's trade balance.
Yeah, but it's important. The people are forecasting because as we speak, really, India is one of the fastest growing economies globally. And they've been doing well due to a number of reforms that the government has put in place to see how to really increase productivity. And to a very large extent, looking at it from 10 years ago where India was and where they are today, you have seen that in terms of productivity curve, India is actually going up and they're doing more, and government is ensuring that a lot of people are taken off poverty. So this is the real concern that the whole world is having, that you see this country is doing everything within its power to see how to move their people away from poverty to wealth. So it's that shift, which of course is a global concern today, really. People are looking at how to deal with the issue of poverty. And that's why there's so much argument and views about sustainability debate in terms of keeping your environment, ensuring that your people are well educated and they are having good means of livelihood. So this is it. We're looking at where you see something is growing and people are putting in and you say, how sustainable is this growth? That's why the interest.
All right, we just have to leave the conversation here. Thank you so much, Dr. Dauza Samanze. Let's hope that this deficit could be corrected and then the government will do something to strengthen the local currency, which is India rupee. Thank you so much for your time and your solution.
Thank you, Femi. Blessing, thank you.
You're cool. Let's take a quick break and then we'll return to look at something else. We'll be going to Argentina when we return.
The heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress. Welcome to Souk News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souk News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souk News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souk News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souk News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
My name is Dr. Ajili Tobi. My name is Etemere Glover. Naomi, well done, and shout out to Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News. I want to encourage everyone to keep watching Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News, and yes, tune into them.
Keep watching Souk News. They are one in town.
Hey, we're watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News. Catch them on YouTube and all social media channels.
Hey, my name is Frank Edowo, and I'm imploring you. No, forget that. I am forcing you, coercing you to always stay tuned to Souk News for your news requirements.
We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas Touch and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job. The heart to sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress. Welcome to Souk News, your source for business, economy, and development insights that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souk News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souk News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souk News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souk News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This early exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the early exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Good to know you're still with us in Early Exchange. Now we are going to talk about Argentina, which has been battling a high inflation rate. But inflation rate at the end of February was around 12% against the predicted 15%. The country's president, Javier Milei, has been doing some work, tightening up measures to ensure that the inflation rate drops. But what is happening? Why has Argentina rather been battling a high inflation rate, which is considered as one of the worst inflation rates globally? We have Sam Uruji, who is Director, Center for Public Policy, with us in the studio this morning to talk about it. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the show.
My pleasure to be here.
All right, looking at Argentina, considered to have one of the worst inflation rates in the world, the president of the country inherited the crisis but has been doing some work to ensure that inflation goes down. Thankfully, that of February is not as high as was predicted. But what's your take on the Argentina situation?
Thank you very much indeed. We must thank the Argentine president, Javier Milei, who came into power sometime in November last year. He came into a very worse economic situation. Argentina, as we speak, before December last year, was the highest ever, highest inflation in the world. He's a right-wing politician. So far, between December and February, there's been some level of development in terms of reduction in inflation. December was about 25-point-something%. January about 20%. Then February was about 13.5%. They projected 15%. So if you look at the austerity measure that he put in place in the last 4 months, is gradually yielding some rewards. Unfortunately, the rains devastated part of the gains they made sometime in February. But hopefully, the rain, on the other hand, will improve on their wheat cultivation. It's one of the largest wheat supplier in the world. So hopefully, those indicators will improve on livelihood and then on their exports. So in the months to come, there's hope that the austere measures will begin to have some positive results on the citizens.
Talking about these austerity measures, let's look at them. One of them is the cutting of cost of governance, removal of subsidies, and also some welfare programs. Now, what do you make of this decision? Do you consider it to be strategic, and do you still see him going this light in coming months, looking at this result that he has gotten in a few months?
If you look at the Argentine economy up till October last year, and you see what Javier Milei has done in the last 4 months, I think some of those decisions are strategic. They are going to impact on the citizens. The fiscal discipline, cutting the size of government. So if you take it to our client, people have been saying that if somebody can cut on the size of government to make some remarkable inroads in trying to provide a welfare for the citizen. So it's a welcome development. It looks disciplined, it looks focused in spite of the challenge ahead of him. And if you can use the benefit of foresight, so far in the last 4 months, it shows that it's pulling Argentina in the right direction. So I think every move, both fiscal discipline, subsidies, and cutting the size of government are strategic.
But in spite of these measures, the citizens of Argentina are lamenting because they say the prices for food and other basic necessities have increased. Targeting subsidies at a time like this, subsidies for things such as utilities and transport, do you think is a right step in the right direction?
If you just step back a little and look at the state they were up till October last year when this new government came into being, then there is their legitimate right to complain. But if somebody is trying to put you on the right trajectory in terms of growth and development, I think they should give the man a chance maybe for this year and see what he can do with the economy that is devastated, badly devastated in the last 3 decades, so to speak. So in my view, I think Javier Milei is doing remarkably well, particularly at the point where he came into governance.
Let's revisit the decision to streamline welfare programs, which was part of the austerity measures he took to ensure, to reduce the cost of governance. On the other hand, you have government saving money. But is it not going to impact people who these welfare programs are meant for when you streamline them? It's just like what you have and what we call social investment. Is it not going to also affect the people? And that's why you see the impact. People are complaining about the cost of living. What do you make of that?
No, the social intervention mechanisms are there. What it did was to streamline them and prioritize them. So it's not that everything was taken off the table for the average citizen. So you look at a system that is bedeviled with some high level of corruption, and somebody is trying to streamline it with a view to be able to tighten belt so that the country can be put on the right path of development. I think, in my view, the citizens should give him some little time to demonstrate the leadership competence that he has shown in the last 4 months. And if you look at the various international media review, his approach and policies has been salutary, particularly a country, like I mentioned earlier, that has been done the last 3 decades, about 30 years. Argentina has been in the woods, and somebody is trying to recalibrate the process so that the citizens can smile again. So in that breath, I think citizens should be patient to some extent.
So let's look at some of the actions that the president has taken towards curbing the inflation rate. Now, the currency was devalued sometime in December by about 50%, but it is reported that that action caused prices to leap even higher.
And I think that's just in the realm of speculation in my view, because before they went into that route, they had a meeting with IMF and they designed some policy initiative which he bought into. So to that extent, if you say the high cost of living was occasioned by the devaluation of their local currency, to a very large extent, sounds a bit political. But what is important, that devaluation, if you look at the rate of inflation in December, January, up to February, even though the speculation is that they may not be able to maintain that trend till end of March, but if you look at the trajectory so far, there's a better light on the other end of the tunnel, in my view.
All right, I'm afraid we'll have to drag the Bretton Woods institutions into this again. IMF, for instance, with consultation or recommendation of the IMF for Argentina to devalue its currency. Now, this recommendation by the IMF to countries at some point in time to devalue their currency, what's your view on it? It happened in Egypt. At some time in Nigeria too, the IMF recommended that Nigeria devalues its currency. In a time where economists are beginning to take a second look at economic policies and how they've not been so effective in recent time, what's your view on the IMF's recommendation to countries to devalue their currency?
Strangely, if you are indebted or you want to borrow money, you are at the mercy of the lender. So that's, I just put it mildly. What that shows that most of the countries that have not been disciplined in terms of their monetary and fiscal policy, at the end of the tunnel, when they have a problem, they always go back to the IMF. So what do? Somebody wants to lend the package to you. We dictate the tune. So on the other hand, if you look at it from the point of view of international politics and conspiracy, then these Bretton Woods institutions had their own challenges. But if those countries that always go back to the IMF for development purposes have really led well in terms of how they manage their fiscal and monetary policy, they may not have a need to go back to those Bretton Woods institutions. So as long as they are there, they will dictate the tune at which they will lend to those countries. And that's why more often than not, they always ask countries to devalue their currency. So it's one of the conditionality that is tied to their lending.
All right, let's look at the poverty rate in Argentina. You know, reports suggest that it's increasing to like 60%. In fact, UNICEF has warned that child poverty may likely surge to 70% if there are measures that are not being put in place to mitigate against this. What will you expect from the government to correct this narrative, and why do you have this kind of surge?
Some of those statistics, I'm always worried with some of the statistics from these international donor agencies or multilateral organizations. 61%, yes. Does that represent the actual scenario on ground? In the last 30 years, I think UNICEF has always been there. A man has just come in, tried to do something to bring the people out of poverty. You're just having a reminder, particularly on child labor. That is not encouraging, in my view. What you should focus on, to what extent, with their own policy framework, help the Argentina government to be able to stay on track to reduce poverty. A poverty forecast that has been there for the past 30 years, and somebody is trying to change the narrative, then this conspiracy, as I call it most time, now come up when people are making some development effort to bring welfare to their people. I think it's not the place of UNICEF to always brandish figure. Whatever they are doing in Argentina, they should be able to focus more on providing real deliverables for children in particular.
But don't you think an organized body like UNICEF will not just release a figure without doing a thorough investigation and then speaking with the locals, you know, because data have been released for the nation to help when it comes to planning and research. And so the essence of this this might not be to bring about any conspiracy theory, but to also point the attention of the government to the need to take action.
Yeah, Femi, you're right, but the point I'm making here is that who owns the data? That is the question.
Data might not be absolute.
No. The point I'm making is when you brandish data, does those data really represent, you sit in some corner and you disaggregate data that may not really be authentic in terms of being on the field. So maybe you have a data of 2-3 years ago, you try to extrapolate those data for the purpose of, okay, 5 years ago, this is the case it was. Now, if you look at those forecasts, this is what is likely to be. So the point I'm making, I'm not saying that data is bad, but who is the owner of that data? And what time are you putting those data in place? So if this data was released sometime in October last year, in terms of what you're doing, then that would have been okay, so that Javier Milei will have looked at those data to project the kind of economic policy he wants to put in place. So I'm not saying data are bad. Are they evidence-based? Who's collecting the data? If you look at those data vis-a-vis the national statistics in Argentina, you might see some marginal difference, and that's why I was making that point. I'm not criticizing data, but you must look at where those data are coming from and the timing of the release of those data.
All right, but what is to be done next to keep the people a bit happy? Because if it continues like this, what are the chances that this may not lead to some form of protest and some unrest in Argentina? Already the inflation rate for February is lower than what was expected. Do you foresee that of March being a bit lower? What else can Javier Milei do?
I think the point that has to be made here is that there's somebody at the helm of affair who's committed to the overall welfare of the citizen. So in that regard, he has made some critical pronouncements, and he has shown action in those pronouncements. So when he came into office in November, the first thing he did was actually to even pull Argentina, even from BRICS. There's a proposal, an ongoing discussion with the BRICS to join in. I said he needed to study the scenario. He cut the size of government. There's physical discipline. There are policy framework that has been put in place to engender discipline. And at the end of the day, by half of the year, some of the gains engendered by the discipline initiated by the president may yield result, and that may not lead to protests, in my view, because in terms of developmental trajectory, is already making efforts to pull down inflation, to see the cost of governance reduced, which will now impact the citizens, the savings they will make from those discipline that he has brought to fore.
Let's look at the report about heavy rains in Argentina. It's a good thing if you look at the impact on cultivation for agri purposes, it's a good thing. But on the other hand, it's also leading to floods, What will you expect on the part of the government to correct this narrative and create a balance?
An emergency situation was put in place to see how the impact of the devastation occasioned by the heavy rains when it happened. On the other hand, meteorologists has predicted that these rains will improve on agricultural productivity, particularly cultivation of wheat. And if you look at the issues in Russia and Ukraine war, you find that if Argentina is able to have a greater harvest from wheat cultivation in particular, in addition to bananas, which is a major export earner for them, then again, that will improve on the economic stability of the country. So by and large, why the impact is impacted negatively in terms of flooding, a lot of cars were washed away, but the emergency regime was put in place. But then the weatherman has said that this will improve on the cultivation in the field and wheat, which is one of the major mainstay of Argentina's economy will improve in terms of cultivation. So let's see how it goes in the months to come. But I'm sure with the level of discipline Javier Milei has put in place, there might be hope for the Argentine in the nearest future.
Would you hope really that the hope comes quickly for people of Argentina so that the citizens can have some relief? Thank you so much, Sam Uruji, for your time on the show today.
A pleasure, Blessing.
Let's take a quick break. Election returns after this time. Stay tuned.
We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas touch and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job. Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a horsing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Marse Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles, symbols of strength and dignity. Our historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square, Souk Enlightenment. We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas touch and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job.
My name is Yinka Babalola.
My name is Ijoma Pelokoro.
My name is Joshua Hassan.
I am Rotarian or Mosunde Lawson.
It's Ife Yunwarita Ejeze. My friends call me Ife.
My name is Rotarian Lola Dare. I'm inviting you to keep watching Souk News. It's the right station to tune to.
I like Souk News. Souk News is good.
I want to charge you all to listen to Souk News, watch the news.
You can have unlimited news first time.
Find Souk News. Be with Souk News. Never switch off. You are better for it. Souk News is the real thing.
Listen to their coverage and you'll be glad you did.
Turn to your YouTube, turn to your Instagram, turn to all your digital channels and look for Souk News.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Please, guys, keep watching
Souk News.
In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress. Welcome to Souk News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souk News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souk News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souk News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souk News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
My name is Yinka Babalola.
My name is Ijoma Pelokoro.
My name is Joshua Hassan.
I am Rotarian or Mosunde Lawson. It's Ife Rita Ejeze. My friends call me Ife.
My name is Rotarian Lola Dare.
I'm inviting you to keep watching Souk News. It's the right station to tune to.
I like Souk News. Souk News is good.
I want to charge you all to listen to Souk News, watch the news. You can have unlimited news first time.
Find Souk News. Be with Souk News. Never switch off. You are better for it. Souk News is the real thing.
Listen to their coverage and you'll be glad you did.
Turn to your YouTube, turn to your Instagram, turn to all your digital channels and look for Souk News.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Please, guys, keep watching
Souk News.
Buying the name of the company is not the issue. Buying the person that has the ideas is more important. And if you lose that person, then you really have an empty can. In an earlier share, I talked about the concept of entrepreneurship, where the entrepreneur is an entrepreneur that doesn't want to take the risk of going to set up a business by himself for the high risk of failure, but still wants to actualize his purpose and passion and his dream within a corporate setting. And if he can find a culture that supports that and the environment where he can thrive, then you have a successful entrepreneur, and there is an entrepreneurial environment for business. How do we empower or enable entrepreneurship in our business? So with the plethora of fintechs and the challenge to banks, many banks went out there to do the natural thing that comes to them, buy the competition. So they went and bought the fintech companies along with the founder of the fintech company, which is a beautiful marriage. If you can create the environment that enables that entrepreneur business that you bought to continue to deliver at speed and at scale, as they would have if they were outside your corporate environment. Many did not succeed because they ended up with an empty can. Buying the name of the company is not the issue. Buying the person that has the ideas is more important. And I think that what we need to do as corporate businesses is to think about how to create an environment for the entrepreneur business that we buy and the entrepreneur founder that we have brought in, the space to be creative, to innovate, to experiment, to learn, to unlearn, to make mistakes and learn from the mistakes without constricting him with this full rigor of the tight control environment that the business has. If we can find a way of marrying that need for creativity and innovation with the results that are produced and managing the risk, then we have a successful partnership between the entrepreneur and the corporate business called entrepreneurship.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Many thanks for staying with us in Early Exchange. Like I said at the beginning of today's show, that there's a surprise. Many people were expecting that when the list for countries with worst food inflation rate comes out, Nigeria will be topmost. But it was missing from that list. What does that say? Sam Oroji, Director, Center for Public Policy, is still with us. Maybe we'll have the answer for us. So, what's your take on that? Food inflation rates for Nigeria, as at February, it was around 33.93%. But right now, it's still not considered as Nigeria is not considered as countries with the worst food inflation.
Well, whether we are considered, whether we are among the 10 or not among the 10 that are top on the list. What is important is that the cost of living in Nigeria is still very high, and a food inflation that is over, is it 39?
33.
33.9% is still on the higher side. The average citizen cannot have a decent square meal a day. So, in my view, it's still worrisome whether they put the name on the list. What is important is that the government must do the needful to reduce the cost of living, particularly food inflation. People can really hardly put a square meal on the table. So I don't think it's Uhuru yet.
All right, let's look at the statistics released by the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, which show that the annual food inflation rate was at 35.4% in January, higher than that of what you had in January 2023. So looking at that trend, how will you describe the trend in Nigeria when it comes to food inflation, and why did we get to this level? I'm aware of what is playing out globally, looking at the Red Sea attack, which has affected a lot of shipping and logistics, and then the war in Ukraine and all that. But we're talking about Nigeria now. How did we get to this level where there's surge in food inflation?
Essentially, it's as a result of the state of insecurity in Nigeria. The Ogonvon spaces, particularly in northern Nigeria, is partly responsible for the high level of food inflation. So the government must take security seriously so that people can go back to farm, and that will help to reduce the high level of inflation. So the picture we're trying to paint of about 32.5% or thereabout now at some point in time, and now you're talking about 33.
35.4 in January.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're talking about 33.9 something percent.
93 in February.
Yes, okay. That's very marginal. Mathematically speaking, that's very marginal. And if you really put the impact on the table, I don't think there's really much difference. But those who are collating and doing data analysis, yes, a 2% will be some improvement. But that It's not a sharing news for me. So the government should just focus on how it can deal with the overlapping drivers of conflict, particularly terrorism, banditry, kidnapping that has overshadowed the entire northern Nigeria and some part of the country in a matter of speaking. So that will continue to impact negatively on those who have access to their farm. Where people are not secure to go to farm, it becomes a major problem.
Well, this World Bank's list was actually done based on an assessment conducted by analyzing the Consumer Price Index data from May to August 2023. Now, could that be the reason Nigeria is missing from the list? Because at that point in time, Nigeria's food inflation rate wasn't as high as it is currently.
No, I think the point here is that whoever did that report or research, they have their benchmark, and once those parameters set for the research, and you don't fall within the baseline of that research, then there's no problem because the parameter has been put in place. So maybe that is responsible. So the consumer price index, there's just mechanism you use to measure consumer goods in a given economy. So if we have moved a little away from that report, then to a very large extent we can give kudos to the government, but they must work hard, particularly in terms of cutting the size of governance so that we can make some savings and continue to fight terrorism so that people can go back to farm.
If you look at nations listed here, you have Argentina, you have Egypt, you have Zimbabwe. And if Nigeria is missing in the list, is this something to celebrate now? Or is it a call for serious work?
Well, like you said earlier, and like I mentioned too, that the basic parameter, maybe the baseline study, it was just lucky that we were not within the radar, but there's still a lot of work on the horizon. The government needs to show more fiscal discipline. The monetary regime on the other side must have a supervision on the banks so that even the rate of lending can go into the real sector.
All right, so for countries that are experiencing very high food inflation, I understand that there's a global food shortage, but for it to affect countries of Africa a lot, in the list you have Sierra Leone, you have Egypt, you have Rwanda, Ghana, amongst the other countries of the world. Africa is a continent where primary products mostly are sourced. Shouldn't food be one of those primary products that should be in abundance in Africa?
If you look at Africa generally, maybe apart from Senegal and Rwanda, and possibly Egypt, Zimbabwe has been on that threshold. God knows how and when that started in Zimbabwe. So the point is that a lot of African countries are bedeviled with conflicts, which are occasioned by resource control, particularly primary mineral resource. So to that extent, when you have internal conflicts, people are not able to do their legitimate farming, then it will impact negatively on the food supply, which is, we talk about more often than not, food security. So if you have many African countries within that list, it's not surprising because of some of the challenges we are going through. But it builds on African leadership to find a way to constantly pursue good governance so that we can achieve some semblance of security across Africa so that we can improve on the mechanism of growing food that will secure us.
Let me reel out these statistics and I would like you to react to it because we're talking about Nigeria now. According to the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, the food inflation in January was highest in Kogi State, that's about 44.1%. In Kwara, followed by Kwara, 40.8%, and Rivers, 14.0%. While the lowest annual rates of food inflation were recorded in Bauchi, which is 28.8%, followed by Adamawa 29.8% and Kano 30.0%. How do you see these trends, looking at the ones with the highest, Kogi, Kwara, Rivers, the one with the lowest, you have Bauchi, Adamawa and Kano. What do you make of this trend or this pattern of development in these states?
In my view, if you look at those figures and look at the percentage differences, and those in statistics, they talk about disaggregation of figure. The percentage are very marginal. So I don't think it's any good report to celebrate from the National Bureau of Statistics. But what is important is that those states where you have a lower level of food inflation, that means the opportunities in terms of access to farm and access to the market may be better than some of those states that are on the high side in terms of the figure. But my counsel would be that there's really nothing to celebrate, because the differentials in terms of the figures are very marginal. So if you put them in actual reality, it doesn't really speak to anything, in my view. So let's see that the country improve on the security architecture, the security framework, so that we're able to grow more food. Then government should do some level of improvement in the rural area to stem the rural-urban migration, because almost everybody is in the city and there are fewer people on the farms. So if you have fewer people on the farm, then the little you have, everybody will be struggling for the little, so price will go up naturally if you use the forces of supply and demand as a basis. So the government need more work to be done in such a way that the ungoverned spaces is reduced to the barest minimum. Ungoverned space, I mean places like Zamfara, Borno and some other places, and even up to the middle belt where you have a high level of kidnapping. The other day I hear that over 280 people were kidnapped. And sometimes when I hear that number, I'm worried. How do they move those people? On what basis? I don't really understand that, really. So the government needs to do more.
All right, so this list goes to show that there is food crisis across the globe. Now, it is prevalent in low and middle income countries, but even the high income countries are not spared. To what does the world owe this food crisis? Is it about the Russia and Ukraine war?
Yes, I think if you take it back a little, the COVID era impacted negatively across the global supply chain. So it has impact even on food cultivation. But in most recent time, the crisis has been attributed to Ukraine-Russian war. Some crisis in the Middle East has been responsible. So the world must find a way to bring about global peace and security so that we can shore up food supply and provide some food security for the world. But particularly hit is Africa. So the governments of Africa must find a way to collaboratively see how we can support one another in Africa, and the opportunity that the African Union has provided through the African Continental Free Trade Agreement or area should help Africa to reduce the impact of food security.
The global disruption in supply chain shouldn't be an opportunity for African countries to start looking inwards, looking at homegrown solutions rather than depending on what globally it's becoming a challenge. What are these homegrown solutions that could be deployed to mitigate the effect of this rise in food inflation?
I just spoke to one earlier. There's a need to look inward at the continental level. And there's a gateway, if you like, a strategic gateway that will enable Africa, and that's the African Continental Free Trade Agreement or Free Trade Area that has a population size of about 1.3 billion people. So because of these colonial demarcations of Lusophone, Francophone, Anglophone, is going to be an impediment to African development. So we need to remove those blind lessons of colonialism so that we can support ourselves as a country. We have what it takes, even in terms of agricultural commodities. If we have almost every primary mineral domiciled in Africa, I'm sure that if we really look inward, food will not really be a major problem.
But now that it is, what response can be done to ameliorate the situation? And if it's not done quickly, what are the likelihoods? What are the likely fallout from situations like this, particularly in Africa?
No, I think the Continental Union, that's AU, must take this responsibility, particularly food security, very serious. You can create institutions, but if you create those institutions and you don't allow those institutions to operate, then the basis of creating those institutions in the first place may not be necessary. So you have mechanisms, protocols, conventions that you have already put in place in Africa to address food security, and that we should improve on intra-African trade. Then what is stopping us for using those instruments to improve on our livelihood? So the African Union, in line with various regional institutions, should find a way to make this agreement work for the betterment of African citizens.
All right, it's time for us to go on another break. When we return, we'll talk about solutions to the rising inflation in Nigeria. Stay with us.
My name is Veronica Nkechi Eze.
Charles Abana. My name is Professor Martins Emeje.
Professor Sylvester Odion Akaine.
Keep watching Souk
News TV.
The best news channel online.
It's elevating, it's enlightening, it's educating.
Muhammad Ali found his root in Africa. Rumble in the jungle. I swear the king is humble. Jesse Jackson, O.J. Simpson, this is black history. Andrew Young visit Africa in the late 60s. Legend, Bob Marley make the life different. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are big names. They fought for black Americans in the old days. We need the same revolution in our own ways. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Mr. Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre and Eddie Murphy. American prosperity ain't complete with African poverty. It's legendary Idris Abdul Karim, and you are on to Souk News. You don't touch that dial.
We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas Touch, and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix, and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job.
My name is Dr. Ajili Tobi.
My name is Temari Glover. Naomi, well done, and shout out to Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News. I want to encourage everyone to keep watching Souk News.
Shout out to Souk News, and yes, tune into them.
Keep watching Souk News. They are one in town.
Hey, we're watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News.
Keep watching Souk News. Catch them on YouTube and all social media channels.
Hey, my name is Frank Edowo, and I'm imploring you. No, forget that. I am forcing you, coercing you to always stay tuned to Souk News for your news requirements.
We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas Touch, and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix, and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, it's the Early Exchange, and we're looking at global policy update. We started from India, and we're back in Nigeria, where we're spotlighting the rise in food inflation. And we still have Sam Oruje here with us. Now, let's look at a report released by the UN, talking about 26.5 million people living in Bauchi, Adamawa, may likely experience the worst of food inflation between June and August this year. Now, as much as we might say, okay, the statistics are scary and all that, they are not ultimate. What it means is it's good for planning and research. What would you expect if that kind of report is coming out, that residents living in Bauchi, Adamawa, thousands of people, millions of people living in those states, might likely experience the worst of food crisis between June and August? What should federal government do in this kind of situation?
I think that statistic just speaks to the challenge of conflict, particularly terrorism, banditry, and kidnapping that has enveloped the whole of northern Nigeria. One can safely say that, where the ungoverned spaces has increased, even though, on the other hand, government is telling us that they've been decimated largely. But people don't really have access to their farmland. So when you are not able to cultivate food items, then the negative impact is that there will be no food for people to eat. And worst hit is those people within the periphery of those conflict zones. So I think it's provokingly worrisome, and that the federal government has to quickly do something. If not, there will be a crisis on the horizon, and God forbid that we'll get to that point where people can no longer have access to food. Then they'll be driven to some element of criminality, and that will be another gateway for people to be recruited into the Boko Haram and some other banditry group or militia that operate in that region. So the figure should be taken seriously, and if you are saying between now and August, then you can just take that to the end of the year. But I hope that the government look at this report, particularly state government, will not always address the federal government. State government, even local government, have something to do. To what extent can we use local vigilantes, local informants, so that we can reduce the impact of insecurity on those towns or states that you just mentioned?
So the Lagos State government is having food markets where food items are sold at subsidized or low prices compared to other markets. Can this be replicated nationwide?
Well, we thank the Lagos State government for putting that initiative in place. But beyond those food markets, the other social interventions that they can use to reach the states. Not everybody. I understand that one of the ones that was open on, was yesterday?
Sunday, yes.
Yeah, the human traffic there is terrible. So we don't want a situation where there will be stampede and people will lose their life because they are going to queue for relatively priced food markets. But then other states can study the initiative of the Lagos State government and see how far they can learn from the Lagos State government and replicate or scale them up elsewhere to see how that can impact on the various states. But beyond this, state governments must work extremely hard in trying to reduce the tide of insecurity, which has occasioned this high level of food crisis or high cost of living and a lowering standard of living in Nigeria. So Lagos State, well done, but then you should find a way to increase the number of places where you can access this food. Understandably, this may be the pilot markets to understudy their impact, but then they should find a way to increase the number so that we don't have a stampede on our hand.
Nigeria is battling with food inflation, and on the other hand, there's advocacy for increasing salaries and wages, which the federal government is also considering that perhaps in April may likely have a review of official review of the minimum wage. What do you see playing out if this happens at a critical time like this?
Cost of living adjustment, simply called COLA, is a universal concept across the globe, where wages and salaries are adjusted in line with inflationary trends. So it's not a Nigerian issue. If you look at the minimum wage scenario, it's very sad that somebody at the end of the month takes away 30,000 naira. If you look at the cost of transportation, the cost of feeding an average family of 5, which in most cases is not like that in our climate. So it's difficult. So, but what Labour is proposing is very ambitious. I don't think it's sustainable. You're moving from maybe 30,000 to 1 million. I don't think it's sustainable.
Now it's back to 400,000.
Yeah, 400,000 is not even sustainable in the first place. If you look at disaggregation in terms of using exponential increase in terms of calculation, it doesn't make sense. But there's a need to review the minimum wage. But then Labour must take cognizance of other employers of Labour who are struggling in their businesses. So if you are saying XY should pay 499,000, do you know to what extent those other companies are able to generate revenues, first and foremost, to even sustain the operation, not to talk about paying people 499. I think it's unusually ambitious. If I were sitting in that tripartite committee, I should be recommending about 100,000, which can be sustainable. So you don't put a wage regime, which inflation will wipe out in the shortest possible time. And they must consider other sector, particularly the informal sector, that is struggling to survive. But then COLA is a means of national sustenance that is not unique to Nigeria.
All right, it's not about just increasing wage, because by the time wage is increased, what about the increase in food production? How can these two things go hand in hand so that the wage doesn't increase, but the food there is still in short supply, and so the clamor for wage increase comes up frequently?
No, I think that's the point I was just making, that when you're proposing an ambitious figure that is not sustainable in the first instance, taking public sector calculation alone, even the public sector is struggling. Then, on the other hand, if you push that too high, it's going to impact negatively on the cost of food supply, transportation. So if you make it minimally, then other people will be able to equally control the cost of production as well. So government too must find a way to reach out to the farming community by providing some basic input in terms of seeds and extension services that will improve on the yield of agricultural products or produce.
Now let's look at some of the steps being taken by the federal government to address this issue of food crisis in Nigeria. One of the steps will be the directive from the president for some grains to be released, metric trunks of some grains to be released. What do you make of this approach? And then another one, you have the issue of cash transfer to the weaker in the society or the poor in the society. How do you assess the disposition of the federal government towards tackling this issue of food crisis? Look at some of those policies. Do you think they are sustainable and they will have lasting impact? For instance, the issue of cash transfer and also the release of tons of grains for Nigerians.
For me, so far, I think the release of grain sounds more political. As we speak, I've not really seen any state that has taken delivery of those grains. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I've heard of any state that has really assessed that. Then on the other hand, cash transfer for the vulnerable in society is required. I don't think something is unusual when you do conditional cash transfer to vulnerable in society. Because the idea of this conditional cash transfer is to even enable vulnerable people to access some of that thing. So if, for example, you have access to get cash, then there's an opportunity to have access to the size of your household, and the government can use to promote other policy options. So if you say take cash, then some other information will be provided with that, and that information that is provided can even make you have access to some microcredit that can help to sustain their businesses, and that will enhance their livelihood and equally reflect the economy. So they should balance the release of grain and that of conditional cash transfer to the vulnerable in society. But I think the worry for most people is that who are the people that make up those registers? How are those money disbursed? Is it for political expediency, or only those who have access to politicians can access this money? So once they're able to answer those critical questions, I don't think there's anything wrong in giving conditional cash transfers to vulnerables in society.
So Africa's economic growth for 2023 dropped, but it is projected to grow in 2024, except for Central Africa. But with a situation where Africa is still struggling with high food inflation, do you see the increase in growth feasible for 2024?
Based on the projections, particularly from the African Development Bank, growth is feasible. But then, like I mentioned in one of the conversations earlier, is our leadership must take advantage of its own policy framework that they have put in place to enhance growth across Africa. And again, I can mention that more. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is a good policy initiative that was supposed to improve on the intra-African trade. So if we're able to take cognizance of that, most African governments have an open visa regime to encourage trades among Africans, then that growth trajectory that is being forecasted will be able to reach that too. Central African Republic, because of the conflict that existed there, there's no really good projection. But then, we on the other side of sub-Saharan Africa in particular must see how we can work very hard to improve on trading among ourselves. This idea of African Union talking about a common currency that has had another setback recently must be looked into so that we can have a better future in terms of economic growth and development.
Apart from the expectations from the government, let's look at individuals, Africans, Nigerians. What should we do to survive? Because there's hunger in the land. So what kind of discipline would you expect when it comes to financial discipline, lifestyle, to survive the season and then to be able to manage the effect of this global crisis? Because as individuals, we also have roles to play. And we've been talking about the roles of the government. We've talked about federal, state, and local. But as individuals, as Africans and Nigerians, what kind of discipline is expected at this season to survive this kind of crisis?
Femi, you're precisely right. But one of the first disciplines, in my view, is there's over-reliance on imports, particularly luxury goods in Africa. So I think Africans should find a way to look inward. If you look at 3 of us seated here, if you look at the evidence, it's so massive.
The evidence of what?
Evidence of what we are putting on. These are not local fabrics. These are import-dependent fabrics. So as a collective,
we're all victims.
Yes, that's the point I'm trying to make. I don't want to use that word. That word is so powerful. We look a way to ask ourselves, what is this craze about foreign products? That's number one. If we as collective, as African, begin to look inward in terms of our luxury, our knack for luxury products, particularly cars, things that come from the West, we even see that people import toothpick from Asia country. Let's look inward in terms of what we have. That will help us to a very large extent. On the other hand, we must equally be involved in going back to agriculture as a means of sustenance. We can grow fruits, can grow shrubs, we can grow vegetables within our gardens. Those can help us at the precious time of need. Then on the other side, let's travel within Africa. Let's do business within Africa. Let even the brain drain that we talk about be within Africa, and that will help us in the long run.
Talking about looking inward, what about quality of those locally produced goods?
If you look at the Japanese economic philosophy that is called Kaizen, which means you continually improve on whatever you do, whether in terms of knowledge, in terms of products. So we know that some of the products in the marketplace may not meet the global best practices, but let's consume them. We encourage those manufacturers to improve in terms of their GMP, good manufacturer or manufacturing practices. That will help to sustain those businesses. Let me take you back a little. Japan, in particular, and China, at some point in time, whatever goods that come from those places were considered as inferior goods at some point in time. But as we speak, we have their goods all over the world. So if Africans can consume what they have, those who are into production, into manufacturing, can improve on their products so that we will improve on their competitiveness in the global marketplace. That will help us in the long run.
But some of the goods produced locally are almost as expensive as the foreign made. Take, for instance, Nigerian rice and the foreign rice. They're almost at par in terms of price.
Anyway, some African countries are noted for dumping of goods. So even the ones that we manufacture here, which are healthier to a very large extent, once we consume them and the competition is there, over a period of time, the price will drop. And you remember where we had some few months where we had the rice pyramid, the prices of rice was reasonably priced vis-a-vis the foreign ones. So let's consume our products. Let's buy made in African products. Let's buy made in Nigerian products. And I'm sure that over time, they will improve in terms of standardization, in terms of the market, in terms of competitiveness, they'll be able to get global attention. So let's just be disciplined, look inward, like what China did and Japan did previously.
All right, I must thank you very much, Sam Uruji, for being with us on the show today. We've been talking about the high food inflation rates across the globe, and it so happens that in that list released by the World Bank, Nigeria was missing from it. And Sam Uruji, who is Director, Center for Public Policy, has been with us discussing the issues. Again, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
We do hope that the government of Nigeria and the CBN and all that are working to ensure that the inflation rate drops in Nigeria will not rest in their oars, since Nigeria was missing from that list. We do not want the next list released to have Nigeria in it. And Africa can do a lot to ensure food security for its citizens. I am Blessing H. is a wrap on the show today. Many thanks for watching. The show continues tomorrow, 8 a.m. West African time. So there was Stick News. You enjoy lots of wonderful programs and have yourself a great day.
And from me to you, wherever you find yourself, ensure that you are a problem solver, because you remember for two things in life: the problem you solve and the one you create. So are you a problem solver or a troublemaker? Don't forget, the conversation continues on our social media platform, and Early Extinct returns tomorrow. I am Femi Ayodele. Bye for now.